Don't we have a quorum now anyway?
I'm sorry?
Never mind. Go for it.
Okay, so we are starting the Recreation and Parks, a public hearing for the master plan. So I will turn this over to Mr. Stowers, who is the Director of Recreation and Parks. And so I don't know if you have anything that you want to say, Robert?
Yeah, just a brief, just a brief introduction. This study and ultimate written master plan and strategic plan has been a result of nearly two years in the making, and we've held. This will be our fourth. This public hearing will be our fourth public hearing, public meeting. We've had 3 other public meetings, and we've had one large meeting with department staff and stakeholders as well. We've had 10 focus groups, and you know, we've had the master plan surveys online for a few months in the beginning of the study, and then we sent out mailings to get a quantified study of what our residents want in their parks for the next 10 years. And so this is a culmination of all the work we've done with Kimley Horn, who was the consultant, and we have Nick Kuhn here tonight just to give us a brief overview really quickly while before we take public comment.
Yeah, and so I could go ahead and go through a few slides, or just brief a little bit. Okay. Let me go ahead and share. All right. So as Robert was noting, we have a really 4 main phases that have taken about a 2-year process to really make sure that we're hearing from everybody throughout the community and really identifying the needs and priorities of residents. And so we've gone through these 4 steps. We're at the tail end of the implementation planning. And I'll highlight a few items that came out of this is sort of the 2 years in a time span here. A lot of different events and milestones and check-in points with the community. But you can see on the far right there where we are here tonight at the tail end here. But really this has been about facilitating a process with the community to again identify needs and priorities when it comes to recreation and parks. You know, we went through several steps early on. You know, one of the most important is visiting each park, evaluating each park. And so, you know, one of the big takeaways from this was we do have some room for improvements. We are meeting a lot of expectations in different categories of how we evaluate the performance of parks. And you know, we have some really standout examples that you can see in some of our best scoring parks, and we have some other parks that you know, life cycle improvements, replacements of facilities, ADA accessibility are some of those areas that can really be improved with some of our primarily older and in some cases heavily used parks. We went through a couple different what we call level of service measurements. These are just ways that we can try to compare apples to apples within a mixture of peer communities. And you can see those listed on the bottom right, and as well as national averages. And so we looked at a couple of these different measurements, acreage per capita, the number of facilities per capita, as well as access. That is an important part of one of the more recent advancements of looking at how equitable access is really provided across the city. And again, this is an area where we can have some improvements. And then finally, the staff and funding is on a per capita basis, making sure that we have the resources both through staffing and funding to be able to really implement the needs and priorities of the community. So making sure that, again, staffing levels were slightly below average in terms of our peer communities, as well as national averages for expenditures per capita. So we'd like to seek different ways to again provide staffing that's needed to satisfy the community's needs and to fund capital improvements as well as operations. We've had a number of public engagement events throughout the project, and both online, in person. We really bridged the pandemic period where we were starting off with a lot of things virtual, and we've been able to really finish with getting in-person feedback as well. Over 850 hours of participation from the community in the development of this plan. So it really reflects the input of the community and the recommendations and the ideas that participants really provided. As Robert highlighted, we did conduct a number of surveys. We had an online survey open to everyone that would like to provide input. We also had a statistically valid survey of city residents. And so each one had several hundred respondents each. And so this is a highlight of just one of about 25 questions that we asked in the statistically valid survey. And these are just identifying the top 8 actions that residents are willing to support with tax dollars. So this is not only the actions that residents identify as a need and support, but really are willing to put their financial support behind as well. And so you can see the top 2 focus on maintaining existing parks. And that's really been a trend since the Great Recession for a lot of communities to see that very highly rated in here. Now you can see number 3 was developing trails, new trails and connections. And that's part of our younger population really is for them, it's the top priority. So having that connectivity is very important. And then these again are just highlighting the top 8, but number 8, develop new aquatics facility. This is actually a top priority for households with children under 10. 38% of those households said that was their number 1 action that they would support with tax dollars. So these are different ways that we review that information. All in, we look at about 12 different techniques of sampling the community's needs. And so this matrix pulls together months and months of work and input from hundreds of residents throughout this process, and summarizes on the top portion the 10 most or highest need facilities, as well as the bottom half highlighting the top 10 programs and activities for needs. And so you can see for facilities, it's really the walking paths, sidewalks, smaller neighborhood parks, natural parks, trails, and restrooms are the top 5 there. And programs focus on water-related activities such as swimming and fishing, as well as aquatics programs, nature enjoyment, special events and festivals, and then finally senior adult activities round out the top 5 programs. And certainly these are the top ones. Each facility type, each program has its importance to populations in the community. So we track each one, but these are just summarizing what bubbled to the top across all these different techniques. What really makes the Norwalk Parks system unique is a combination of different components, not just talking about neighborhood parks or community parks. These are our waterfronts, our natural areas, our regional community and neighborhood parks, our athletic facilities, and our school parks, as well as the programs. And so we really kind of identify goals for each of these different components. And this is something where we start to identify goals, objectives, and also projects that advance each of those different components. With community input and staff input, we were able to identify a priority list of the top 10 goals for advancing Norwalk Recreation and Parks. And so you can see these 10 overarching goals that we've really had identified through that input. focusing on number one, providing high quality parks and facilities, and also addressing the maintenance needs. So making sure we can take care of what we provide. But you can see number two focuses on access. And so each goal hits on a specific theme, whether it's funding or collaboration, as well as connectivity through each of these. Funding, we really focused on as part of the first step of implementation. The department has had an increase of funding over the last 10 years, but the value of that has really been impacted by inflation in the last, specifically the last couple of years, as we all have felt that. And so the financial increase is really actually half the value over that time when factoring in inflation. But every increase does help. Cost recovery is one area that we would be looking at towards potentially increasing. The city does quite well with the programs that are offered right now, have a fairly high cost recovery return for the programming. Our main limiting factor for increasing the programming and potentially cost recovery is the lack of indoor space. And so we do have some recommendations that focus on that. When we take all the ideas that came from the public in regards to improvements, specifically capital improvements across the city for recreation and parks, it leads to quite a large number, over $140 million in capital projects. But this captures all ideas. And so we know we can't necessarily fund all of those ideas, say in the next 10 years. We need to look at creative ways to go about this. In fact, projecting the historic funding rates that we've had, and this is factoring those increases in the last 10 years, we can fund about 30% of that. And so we have quite a bit left to really try to find others creative strategies to fund. So that was our starting point in really creating that roadmap for implementation. And so we identified 6 strategies to help go about this. The first was phasing projects. And this was something where, again, we circled back to what the community said were top needs. And we put these in 4 different buckets, each project. And so short term are focused on the next 3 years, medium term in the next 6, long term in the next 10 years. And then we have vision projects that may take 10 or more years. And some of these are maybe lower priorities or just take a lot of coordination in order to actually move forward. We also look at additional sources of funding and recommend creation of a Parks Foundation as one alternate source. Also looking at additional revenues for sources of additional funding, and then utilizing time through grant stacking. So leveraging the matching funds that we already have. So those projects that may be long-term, we can seek additional grants and use one grant as leverage and matching funds to then seek another grant. So when time is on our side, we can utilize that strategy quite effectively. Cost recovery, again, reevaluating our goals, potentially capturing more for reinvestment into the parks that are creating the revenues, but making sure that cost recovery aligns with our mission as a department, as a city, with affordability as well. Complementary providers and partners. This is another looking to expand our partnerships with nonprofits, private community, faith-based, business community, a number of partners through this. This could also include sponsorships and other additional items that can be expanded upon from current practices. And lastly, project prioritization. So within each of those 4 buckets of phasing, we also evaluated all 120 plus capital projects with the rated criteria that you can see on the right. And that is really helped to identify potentially what is the most bang for bucks in terms of advancing projects. What can advance some of the goals as a community the most? And so this is intended to be reviewed and updated regularly. And it's not intended to be an ordering of completion. As criteria may change for specific projects, this would be looked to be updated. just a quick example of how some of the projects look across the city, we're just taking the short-term projects, those that scored in the top 20 in terms of prioritization. And you can see that, for example, the projects are all over the city. These really do touch all regions, all neighborhoods, and they're a mixture of different types of projects. Some are very specific in terms of accessibility improvements. Others are larger projects, such as the 98 South Main Street renovation of the indoor rec space. So bigger ticketed items with higher needs, also smaller, lower hanging kind of fruit items that really can advance, again, some of the goals here. So this is a mixture of just what those look like. And this is the case for all 4 of those buckets. The takeaways here with the implementation is when applying the phasing to the projects, we look at about 40%, almost 41%, or about 58 million in total projects fall within priorities for the next 10 years. And so short term, over the next 3 years, we'd like to focus on about 19.3 million of those projects. And so again, that takes not only just capital costs, but we also want to, as we understand now the phasing and recommendations of when these projects could be realized, that there are also operating and maintenance costs that come with these projects. And so with those short-term projects over the next 3 years, potentially, there'd be an increase of almost 340,000 operating costs needed, which would translate roughly to about 3 to 4 additional full-time positions for the department. So as we look at this as a balance between what facilities are potentially new and expanding operation needs versus those that may be simply replacing what is already there with something that might be more efficient operationally as well. So if we're really successful in implementing all 6 of those implementation strategies, we're very hopeful in that we could accommodate about 120% of what we would need over the next 10 years. And so building some flexibility into that funding would be needed, because as we look back just in the last 3 years, what has happened in the economy and in our society, we need to make sure that the plan is flexible for the next 10 years. And so with that, we have, again, broken into the different phases here with about, again, 40% of those projects really identified as top needs and viable in terms of funding sources to be able to move forward in the next 10 years.
Nick, so I don't mean to interrupt, but we've got about 14 people
Sure.
that are waiting, and we've got to follow up with our recreation and parks. I think this was a very helpful just to kind of go over this. How
Sure.
much more time do we really need to give folks some time? We just want to.
I think I got just 3 more slides.
So if we can do that
Yeah,
very quickly.
Sure. So, and this slide just shows that there is support within the community. Again, from the statistical survey, 67% are willing to pay additional taxes to support this improvements. 68% are willing to pay additional user fees. So there is support and recognition of the value. We have, again, about 10 visionary goals and about 51 measurable objectives as part of this plan. And the community input and review of the draft master plan, we had a workshop back in June in person, and the draft master plan has been available for approximately 10 weeks for public review and comment. And so we've reviewed those comments, and I'll leave this on this slide as a takeaway. The comments really emphasize a continued interest in youth sports, dog parks, aquatics, and having additional time for review. And so that was expanded from 30 days to 10 weeks. We also have strong support in terms of approving and adopting the plan, and a high level of excitement for implementation. So we surveyed those that were able to participate in June in person and have great support in terms of the plan. So we're ready to and excited to hear from the community this evening as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was very detailed. There was a lot more information, but that was a very good overview. I was remiss and I did not take attendance for this public hearing for the staff. So I'm sorry, I have to back up and do that. We have Nicole Ayers, I think she's on. We have Lisa Shanahan who's here. Josh Goldstein. Myself, and I believe Nicole, I cannot see right now, is she on? And Nicole.
Nicole's on.
Yeah, I
I'm
see her.
here.
Yes, dear, I see, you. Thank you.
I thought I saw Nora at one point. I don't know if she's
Yes,
still
and
on.
Nora, and I saw Nora. I hope she's still here. I did see her.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kuhn, can you stop sharing your screen so we could see
Yeah.
everybody?
Okay,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's what's making it.
There we
Nora
go.
was here, so I will check in with her. She did get on.
I think
Right.
Nora's listed as an attendee. I think that's what's messing this up.
Delene, do you think you could send?
I'm promoting.
Nora?
Yeah, I'm promoting it right now. Give me one
Thank
second.
you. Okay, so I think that we're going to get started with the folks who are here who want to speak. So I see Diane and then Diane Lorisella and then Mr. Bonifant. Hello, Diane?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Oh, okay. I didn't get the usual box in the middle of my
Oh,
screen. So I didn't- good evening, Chairwoman Young and the other council members and staff and Mr. Kuhn. My name is Diane Loricella. I have been always very happy that this study and master planning on a comprehensive way was done. I do think that this last round, the final draft, even from May, needed more robust and creative outreach. I asked quite a few people, do you know that the final public hearing is coming and that the final draft was put together? And just for general feedback quickly, many folks said that they had difficulty when they accessed. First of all, it was hard to find the link. This is something that all of you council members really need to see done with the help of the staff. And that is, and the chief of this division, and that is put things like this on the homepage, a link on the homepage of our city website. It was not easy to find this link. And the link also was another company name, and it wasn't easily accessed. So people gave up, unfortunately, on them. But if there is a chance that we could have another month in order for people to get more jazzed about this final report, please don't feel rushed to do so, even though you have spent months and months. Hundreds of people working on this, as opposed to thousands, since we are a town of 92,000. I don't know in the world of statistics whether hundreds is considered a proper amount of, or a viable or credible amount of people. So be that what it may, I'm very happy we did this, but I think it's not ready for prime time yet. I have some very quick, because I know you're getting ready for 7 o'clock. On the master plan itself, I will say it was very difficult to click on the link because I always then had to put it on magnification. And so if there's any way that this draft could be placed on a different platform so it's easier to read online, that would be great. And I think you'd have more participation at these meetings. In general, I wanted to say definitely we need to really look at the increased amount of staffing so that all of our good wishes and vision can be realized and handled. And I am a big believer of user fees where applicable, especially for out-of-towners. I do think, bottom line, we need some outdoor pool facilities. Manchester, Connecticut has a series of many decades ago felt the public said we want pools outdoors. And so please look at towns like Manchester, Connecticut that have solved that issue about aquatic facilities, both indoors and outdoors, of course. In general, I think it's very good. Many of the wishes and hopes and reviews I agree with much of it, although I do think we need to increase the number of soccer fields that we have in our city. And in general, I think for a funding via a Parks Foundation, which Mr. Stowers, I think, talked up, is a terrific idea. I do think in specifics of the 254 some odd pages, really page 249 is something that I didn't get enough time to scrutinize, and I will have to do so before Tuesday if you decide to go forward with this. I'm asking that you give the public another month. But if you don't, the following is needed. On page 97, where you say promote educational opportunities, number 1 and 3, Cranberry Park has vernal pools, and that was discovered in an outdoor assessment done when I and others, this was many, many years ago.
Ms.
But
Laurcella,
yeah.
You're over the 4 minutes. If you can wrap it up, because I know we've got some other hands up. Okay.
Well, I
Go
could
ahead.
also speak at 7 o'clock, but I wanted first to say I spent my personal time and my time as a professional to talk to Mr. Stowers and several of you about the use of artificial turf fields. When I read on page 249 the number of artificial turf fields that this staff and the consultant and therefore the council and the city are planning to do, I say this is, I'm actually very disappointed, and I feel there is nothing in this report that says anything about the conversion of artificial turf fields into natural turf fields, or even a study side by side of making sure that there could be properly designed, properly drained natural turf fields. There is not a mention of it in this, and instead Mr. Stowers and his consultant, and I want to say, Robert, I'm very disappointed because it seemed when we spoke twice, 1-to-1 in the beginning of your time here and most recently last month, I think, is that you were willing not to engage only on artificial turf fields for sports fields, for new sports fields, and renovate it. And I see on page 249, number 6, number 7 for Ponus. Then we have Veterans Park, Brian McMahon, Norwalk High School with Andrews Field, which is a park that we should actually allow to take back. It is a wetland. I think there needs to be more discussion about this. Lastly, I spoke with you about Cross Street. Currently, Cablevision is renting what was a park under Frank Esposito. He made it into a parking lot rented to the Optimum office building, and that
Diane, Ms. Laurcella, you had 5 minutes. You're 5 minutes, and so we've got.
Okay, well, I'll close, and so please give us more time to go through this 254 page. If not, please do not allow this report to allow for all these artificial turf fields. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonifant. And can we please kind of stick to the 3 minutes? I know folks have a lot of very important things to say. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can,
you hear
Mr.
me?
Bonifant. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I'm a shorter one on that one. I'm a member of the Exchange Club, and we're swearing in our new officers tonight. So if I say what I got to say and disappear, it's not because I'm one of them that says it and goes. So, all right. Thank you, Richard Bonifant, Park Hill Avenue. Thank you very much. And I appreciate the outreach you've been doing. If anybody missed your outreach, well, it's because I don't want to blame you. It's half and half. It's between that Zoom thing that a lot of people get discouraged on, and a lot of people aren't checking what to do. So, you know, you put it out there. You met with the public. I'll give you that. All right. My concerns are that the enforcement of the rules. All right. Right now, I'm experienced. I'm a grandfather, and my wife and I, we take our toddlers to the parks. And what you're going to need is you got to decide, are you going to enforce the rules? Like, who actually tells people, excuse me, you're not allowed to have a dog in the park? I mean, are you allowed? You know, are you asking the park goers themselves to like have a confrontation with people with dogs in the parks? Or I'm just telling you, big dogs and toddlers don't mix, and you're asking for a recipe for disaster, okay? Right now, and it's related to you indirectly, right now, the zoning commission is rewriting all their zoning rules. Maybe you guys, whether through the staff or the committee, could write the zoning commission something like that says, hey, if you're gonna put 400 apartments in a complex, maybe you should be required to have a dog walking area or something like that. Because they're just, I'm just telling you, I've been to, I see them at Flax Hill Park, Cranberry on the Great Lawn, Matthews Park in the back. And it's, you know, I'm a little apprehensive taking the little kids like where we want to go. They're just learning how to, you know, a couple of them are just learning how to walk, and the 3-year-olds are better at it, but you know, they want to run around. So I made my point about like enforcing the rules about safety and dogs. As far as the presentation about funding the parks, the tax dollars and all that, well, I was on the council a while ago and we saved Fodor Farm by finding open space grants. Somebody was going to put, like where Fodor Farm is, a developer was going to put 43 homes there, and the council stepped in and paid the same price to the people who were going to sell it. And we got open space grants, and that thing cost us less than $500,000. And look at that nice thing today. All right. And my last point here is to check the deed restrictions before you get any plans for individual parks. I know Ryan Park has deed restrictions, and I'm not sure you're going to be allowed to build a gymnasium like halfway through that thing. If that's what you got into expand Neon, I don't know what you're going to do there, but there's all kinds of, and like Taylor Farm, the beach, there's deed restrictions. So I just want you to be careful that if you got big plans, you better check with the town clerk and the restrictions that might have been put in place when that land was donated to the city as a park. Okay. Hey, thanks a lot for letting me have my time.
Thank you, Mr. Bonifant. Ms. Cece? Ms. Diane Cece?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, little delay there again. Good evening, everyone. I would have, except I have a bunch of notes. First I want to say I completely ditto on everything that Ms. Loricella and Mr. Bonifant just told you. Really, really important points that both of them raised, and I have a few to go through myself, or else I actually would have asked if I could have yielded some of my time to Ms. Loricella, because I know that she's done a more thorough review of this than I've been able to do. And I know what she's saying is important on these, because we've been working on these things and saying them for a number of years, and it bears repeating before this goes to the council. I want to stress one thing before I speak directly to the plan, is that I too had tremendous difficulty in finding the link to the plan itself. And I find that not unlike with a lot of other endeavors by the city, it seems that you may think that there's good public outreach on these things, but there isn't. And I found a lot of people just in the past few days that actually had no idea this public hearing was tonight. So I believe there's another bite at the apple, so to speak, though, when this goes to Common Council, just by virtue of public comment at the Common Council. And I'm sorry I was on another meeting, so I missed the beginning of yours, but I'm assuming that you're looking to advance this to the next Common Council at the end of August. But I would also then echo what Ms. Loricella said, is to go ahead and give this thing another month to bake, and maybe some of us who are more engaged with the community can get some more better public outreach going on this. In terms of my comments on the plan itself, I'm sorry, Darlene Young, if I'm going to sound like a broken record with this, I don't mean to, but I think, you know, personally for years, I have been asking now for an analysis to be done of why we spent $30,000 on a master plan for Veterans Memorial Park in East Norwalk, and then literally, for the most part, have that sitting on a shelf. And so now we come in and we're spending more money on a master plan for all the parks. And I'm not sure even any analysis was done based on the recommendations in the original plan, where there was a lot of public outreach, a lot of public input. And when those things go on a shelf and then you start to rewrite things and you ignore the recommendations in there, people feel like they're being ignored and disrespected. And this is a great example of it. And I think you know personally that I've been trying to get the information of the comparison of what was in the short, mid, and long-term recommendations of that plan, tens of millions of dollars that were supposed to be in each of those periods of capital budgets, never materialized. And so I still, honestly, I would still like an answer to that regardless of what happens with this plan. And because of that, I'm not actually able to do a side-by-side comparison, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to take a look at what the recommendations were that were broadly discussed by the community, and maybe one of the most accepted studies in terms of recommendations that I've ever been involved in my time with government. So it is something that people supported, and it makes it that much harder to see that now that it may not only be being ignored, but there are some things in this new plan that may be completely counter to the 2012 plan that the council adopted for Veterans Park. Not unlike Ms. Lauricella, I was horrified to see the two words together, Veterans Memorial Park, and then artificial turf as well. My bad, but I thought we already moved past that, you guys. I don't even know why that's still on the table, but I'll leave that be. I do want to say that I did in terms of when I finally found the link, I did find the readability online a little bit difficult, just to give you some feedback. But it's even worse for me when I went to print out the pages so I could make some notes. Even with my bifocals and a magnifying glass, it's kind of hard to work with. And so maybe the consultants can do another format that would help us. But I did do a search and I didn't find anything that I thought would meet my needs of where we were 10 years ago. Not just for East Norwalk, but for the city. Ice skating, that's either a municipal facility or run by a nonprofit. Not the debacle that we had in Veterans Memorial Park several years ago. We didn't want that then, and we don't want that in the future. We want a municipal ice skating rink in one or more of the public parks, perhaps Oak Hills or Matthews Park or Veterans Memorial Park, and something maybe like the Police Athletic League for Westport or some other nonprofit. And then to echo, I think Ms. Lauricella did say this about I didn't see anything in here that really spoke to a public pool facility as well. And that would be the same thing, not looking for some sort of, public-private for venture kind of, come in and make your money and run type of deal. Mr. Bonifant also shared something very important with you that I hadn't noted. I'm glad he brought it up too, Ms. Young, especially that a number of these parks do have these kind of well-hidden deed restrictions. And Veterans Memorial Park is another one of them. So the recommendations that are in there really do need to be better scrutinized. In Mill Pond Park on page 238, I said, I'm out of time, right?
Yeah, you're at 5 minutes. So, and we've got about 4 minutes left before we need our meeting.
Can I just wrap it up by saying that my statements, and you'll see the comments, they are printed in this report. I made a series of comments during one of the public sessions that we had. I reviewed all of them this afternoon, and all of them are still, I still feel the same way as I did when I made those comments. But I would say that I would leave you with this, and I hope that some of you agree with me, that our park should be first and foremost for the residents and taxpayers of Norwalk. And secondarily for the description that we sometimes use as regional and tourist. And I think if you keep that in mind at the heart of this, and that for the enjoyment and the safety and the benefit of residents, I think it will lead into better decisions than we've sometimes had in the past. Thank you for indulging me. And I do have to hop back over to zoning, and you all have a good night, and I hope you do extend the time on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cece. Thank you. So I see there are two other attendees. Ms. Boland, I don't know if you wanted to speak. And a Cheryl Podam. Is there anyone else who wants to speak?
Hi, can you hear me? It's Cheryl Podop.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
hi.
Ms. Podam.
I don't need to speak. I was asked to come to this meeting. I was assuming that there must have been some questions about the Walk to End Alzheimer's.
No, you're in the next meeting.
I'm in the wrong meeting.
This is a-
Okay.
This is a
I'll
public
see you.
hearing. And I guess Ms. Boland might be here for the Recreation and Parks actual committee meeting. This is the public hearing about our master plan for recreation. and
My apologies. I'll log out. and
No
come
need
back
to
in.
apologize. No need to apologize.
So-
I
should
just logged in as a concerned citizen to be more informed. I don't have any comments, but I thought the presentation was great and I thank you all for all of the hard work that's been done.
Thank you so much, Ms. Boland.
Sorry, Darlene,
Can
I
you
believe
please I'm sorry.
we're gonna be using the same link though, so I
I
think
was
we're
just
just gonna.
about to ask that
All right,
question.
so they
this-
don't need to jump off, right?
Right.
Ms. Boland, if you wouldn't mind just telling us your address, just for the record.
Oh, of course. It's 1 Ludlow Manor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if that is it, there are no other speakers. I see Ms. Cece just left her hand up though. I don't know why. We will close the public hearing. Or do we have to wait till 7? I think we can just close it, right? All right, great. So we'll all be back here in a few minutes. Like now. I gotta get some water, folks.
So we'll just all reconvene at 7, but keep the
At
links.
7 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, same one. See you in a minute. We're gonna call the Recreation and Parks and Cultural Affairs Council Committee meeting to order on the date of August 9th, and present are Nicole Ayers, Josh Goldstein, Lisa Shanahan, and we also have joining us Councilwoman Nora Nojelski-Eichner. Okay. And absent is Brian Meek, Jen McMurr, and John Kites, not with us. We do have a quorum. I'm sorry. So we have approval of the July 12th minutes. Mr. Goldstein approves those minutes. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Do we have public participation?
Madam Chair, I abstain from that.
Oh, okay. All right. And one abstention. Ms. Ayers abstains. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. The city of Norwalk reserves the right to cancel the event of public health or for public health or safety reasons as determined by the city of Norwalk in its sole discretion. The city of Norwalk shall not be liable for damages arising from the cancellation of the event. 5.1, Recreation and Park Director recommends to the Recreation and Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee of the Common Council the acceptance and approval of the 2023 Recreation and Parks 10-year master plan and strategic plan developed in concert with Kimberly Horn Consultants. And further recommends the 2023 master plan and strategic plan be moved to the next meeting of the Common Council for final adoption, and that will be the September meeting.
Darlene, I think you may have skipped over public participation for this meeting.
No, I thought I did. Okay. I'm sorry. Anyone here for public participation?
Yes, I am Cheryl Podop from the Alzheimer's Association.
Yes, she's part of the, Diane Lorcella?
And Susie Kanya from Norwalk Hospital.
Yes, you all have items on the agenda, so the public
Okay.
participation, I know it's kind of confusing, so the
That's
public
okay.
participation is just for folks who want to comment on any of the agenda items who are not part of the agenda items. So I still see Diane Lorcella's hand.
Miss Young, can you hear me?
Now we can, yes. I'm sorry. I didn't see it prior. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. The usual method that we are prompted to speak is not working on Zoom this time,
It's
but
crazy.
that's okay. Sorry about that. Okay, well, for the record, my name is Diane Lauricella, 21 Little Fox Lane in Norwalk. I spoke at the previous meeting, and I stand behind my comments. I do ask, number one, thank the council, the mayor's office, and the staff for engaging on a master plan of parks, which is on the agenda. I do ask, because it is 254 juicy pages, that you consider, because of the fact that many people are on vacation in August, and also, quite frankly, even though I know that efforts were made over the last 2 years, there was very little effort apparent for this last round. And it's kind of sad, because there were some creative ways to get people to come to the public events over the last year, but it was difficult to find this document. The link wasn't even on the homepage. It wasn't even on the Recreation and Parks page, quite frankly. You had to be clever enough to know how to use the menus. And that's a darn shame, because several people wanted to speak. They just couldn't find it. And once they did, I don't know about you, I don't know if all of you have read the 254 pages, but it's on a platform that's difficult to read because it's so tiny. You have to magnify it on each page. So it's really cumbersome. And I ask Mr. Stowers, all this effort, let's make it easier for people to read. That's why I ask that you hold off one more month. Mainly, I just wanted to say all of my comments from before stand. I do want to say one thing that I think should be added immediately on page 110 in 6.1, where you talk about the vision for Vets Park. I do think nearby we need to consider adding an the fort where the fort was, the fort relics, and indigenous peoples mention in Vets Park, or a park closer to where the relics were found. It's something that shouldn't be left only to the Historic Society. It is part of our fabric of our community. I do also want to reiterate on page 249, where the rubber, I guess, meets the road. There is, I was able to lift out of it at least 4 to 5 or 6 intentions for installing artificial turf fields, either new or replacement. Unless and until this committee pays attention to the known scientific pollution, health, and athletic injuries associated with artificial turf fields in a true and honest comparison side by side with natural turf fields, I do think that this portion needs to be put on a shelf there unless and until this document, this is a 10-year document. I could not find any place in the document, and I didn't read all 254, but I scanned a lot of it too. I couldn't find where it said anything about natural turf fields or possibly converting the older artificial turf fields that still do contain toxic materials and looking at possibly converting them to natural turf fields, or having a study done or an evaluation of the science. And that is a darn shame. And I'm very sad, because I very much like Mr. Stowers, and I like the fact he brings a lot to the table. But on this, I feel almost like I was snookered, because I felt there was a promise made that we are going to look at natural turf fields and the benefits versus the benefits versus the risks of both, with a neutral party, not someone from the artificial turf field business, which was the way Mr. Mokai handled the credible health issues that I and many others have brought up. So this is not ready for prime time. And if Mr. Acune or the consultant was not told about this issue, it's all the more reason to spend one more month and go back and add some language that at least recognizes that this is a true issue for the current year and beyond. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Loratello. I don't see any other hands. Is there anyone on that is not on the agenda that wanted to speak during the public participation? Okay. So we can move on from that. Okay, item on to new business, 5.1. The Recreation and Parks Director recommends to the Recreation and Parks Cultural Affairs Committee of the Common Council the acceptance and approval of the 2023 Recreation and Parks 10-year master plan and strategic plan developed in concert with Kimberly Horn Consultants, and further recommends that the master plan and strategic plan be moved to the next meeting of the Common Council for final adoption. So someone move the item?
Actually,
talking about-
I'm not moving it.
You're not,
I'm not moving it, no. Someone else should move it.
Nicole, Miss
Move
Ayers?
it.
Okay, Miss Ayers moves the item.
I have a,
Um,
that's why I was raising my hand.
you have any discussion comments?
Yes. Sorry, Josh, if you want to go first,
It doesn't matter to me. I guess Lisa and I are on a similar vein here. I guess the way I would put this, in my review of the plan, the thing about the Turks, especially in around our sea areas and Veterans Park, I thought the report, and I think our public commenters kind of spoke to this, but I would say I think there's a bit of an internal inconsistency in regards to the application of turf fields, whether to relocate or remove them, or whether certain areas in our cities, where especially where our parks border or the water, can have an outsized effect. There is a notation, I know, in the report about the PFAS, or I think we call them PFAS. I don't know if that's what we actually call, they're actually like called or not. This is an actual issue. This is an issue where we know that, especially amongst many of the businesses that rely on our water, in particular the sounds, everything from the oyster industry and beyond, this is something that they recognize as a clear and present danger. And there's nothing that should be in our parks plans that create a negative effect that could negatively impact not only the health of the region, as Long Island Sound obviously covers not just Norwalk, but also our economic competitiveness. I think that obviously the report at its best, the best way I think of putting it, recommends, basically new fields for Veterans Park. But I think there does need to be a re-examination. And I would admit I was looking for a definition of what a lightly synthetic turf multi-purpose field is, as opposed to just a synthetic multi-purpose field. I don't really get a sense of what the difference is. I do think that, again, adopting a document doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's going to be a bunch of turf fields on Vets Park. I want to make that clear because that goes through a different approval process. But I do think that this recommendation gives me pause. There's a lot in this report that is very good in terms of streamlining and enhancing our parks capabilities, and an understanding that people really care about our parks and interesting strategies of what to do. I don't want to demean the work here at all. But I do think that this particular piece warrants further examination.
Thank you, Ms. Ayers. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Lisa, I saw that.
Lisa was before me.
I saw that. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Lisa.
muted.
Hmm.
I put my hand up to speak, but not to make a motion because I can't support the report for the turf reasons that we just said. And I do want to emphasize what Josh said, which is like, this is an extraordinary document. There's been an extraordinary amount of work. I don't like to throw babies out with the bathwater or vice versa, or however the phrase goes, but this turf situation is a real problem. And I did sit into the meetings with the Norwalk High School turf fields, and I was really concerned to hear that the people who are pitching us turf fields are still telling city officials that they can be recycled when I know they can't. I've done the research. There's no recycling facility in the United States of America that recycles turf fields. Secondly, the research about PFAS is that it is toxic and it does absolutely pollute our waters. And we're going to have to consider how we're going to be cleaning up our waters, and to choose to put a toxic field on close to waterways where we know that it affects the industry of the oyster industry, and where we know it affects our drinking water supply, just is irresponsible. And it's actually putting a liability on the city that we'll have to clean up something that we've installed ourselves, knowing that there's a danger there. And so I just, to the extent that the report can maybe be amended, or these sections can be pulled out for reconsideration at another time, I just won't be able to support an agreement that says that. There is actually a lot of research that says that a properly constructed grass turf field can compete almost with, within 90% of the time use and also of the expense of artificial turf fields. And we really have to look at this. It's a responsibility. And I haven't even gotten into the discussions about the safety features of turf fields versus grass fields for the athletes themselves, which is extensive. So disappointing about all that. And like I said, I really want to temper these comments, because it's why I can't vote to support this, because I know the extraordinary amount of work. I think the consultants did a fabulous job. I think Robert handled an amazing process, and these conclusions, to the extent that they can be pulled out, it's amazing work. But I think if we vote for this master plan, we're endorsing something that I can't endorse. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. Ms. Ayers?
Thank you. I just want to say to the consultant, as well as Mr. Stowers and the entire Department of Parks and Recreation, thank you. Thank you. We do not say that enough. Many people might think that to do all of this work, to hear all of this is easy, but I know it is taxing. So I just want to say thank you. My question, I want to walk away from turf fields just for a second. But in our previous meeting, someone made inference to previous plans that were used. Mr. Stowers, can you speak to, for a moment, if possible, have we incorporated any of the previous plans that the city had used, or as the metaphor would say, are they still stuck on the shelf?
No, we did go through each master plan for the parks that we had done previously, and screened what had been done, and then sent to the consultant for incorporation, as we always had planned to do, the improvements that were recommended for those parks and those master plans is also incorporated in this master plan.
Thank you, Mr. Stowers. I think it's important for the public to know that the previous recommendations have been sent and are a part of this current process. I think that is very important for the public to know, that we just are not wasting money, that we are taking those recommendations and they have been embedded in this process. Thank you. My follow-up question, so I'm not saying I'm for turf or I'm against turf. I have not drawn the line in the sand for me personally. My question is, because of the robust work that has been done, can we take it in piecemeal, or do we have to take it all together, Mr. Stowers? So can we take parts of the master plan and not other parts of the master plan, or we have to take it in its totality?
Well, Nick can, the consultant can chime in on this, but we do need fields. Whether we can easily remove any title of what kind of field it is. I think we can do that. It was an oversight. I didn't bamboozle anybody at all. It's something that was in the report that, I just didn't get, and looking at everything, it just, it kind of escaped me. but we need fields. And so the fact that they may say synthetic or whatever, we can remove that. That's not a problem. We still need the fields. So if we remove any reference to synthetic, but just indicate that these are the things that are needed and that we need fields at Betts Park and other parks. We can do that. I have no problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. I think we can do that. We can modify and amend those areas that speak to that turf. But we can do that. That's not a problem at all. Common council meeting, we can't get to the next one anyway. We wouldn't get to the next one until September, which is about a month away. We have plenty of time to modify that. You know, I would suggest that we indicate that we pass this, but with the indication that we would remove any reference to synthetic fields. But it does not mean that we still need a discussion and we still need to work through this to determine what kind of fields we really need and what the real issues are. And so that's a community thing that we'll have to go through. And as Ms. Laura Shirley said, I promised her a side-by-side discussion, and that's what we're going to get. That's what we're going to have before anything else is built. I can't speak for the schools, and the Norwalk School right now. I can't speak to that, but I can just tell you that we can remove any references to synthetic fields. And I think with that, I think that that's been the major complaint here, I think. So
Thank you.
we can do
Thank you
that.
so much for that. And I think on the council part, we have to do some work
Mhm.
to get ourselves lined up together. So if we are able just to remove that wording and just say that we need new fields, because again, this work that has been done is needed. I can't emphasize how much it is needed. The only little other caveat I will say, and then I will let one of my other colleagues speak.
Mhm.
Regardless of what we decide to do, many of us fought when I first came on this council to get an increase in bodies, employees for the Parks and Rec department. If it's turf, if it's regular grass, we have to have a maintenance plan to keep up what we have. It makes no sense for us to spend all this money to build all these beautiful edifices and all this great stuff if we cannot maintain it. And so this is really a plea to my colleagues who are on the screen. You're saying yay to this and you want this and you can't stand this and oh, this is unbearable. Know what goes with that. We also have to push on two different playing fields. We have to push to be environmental friendly, but we also have to push to make sure that we have people to maintain what we have. And so I'm sure I'm over my time, but thank everybody. I'm done.
You have all the time.
I don't know if Nick wants to chime in at all, and he was a consultant on this. I don't know if he wants to chime in. And say
So Robert,
Yeah.
but before, maybe Josh can say what he needs to say, and then Nick can jump in.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree wholeheartedly with what my colleague Nicole just said, and I agree and was going to suggest, and Nicole beat me to the punch, and I'm glad she did, to say that I would suggest approving it with that amendment in mind. And I think that's what we should do tonight. I also think that the report basically lends itself to doing it anyway, because there are recommendations to remove synthetic fields. There are then recommendations to put them in. It kind of doesn't really make sense. I think we need to be a little more binary when it comes to this kind of thing. I would also note that I misspoke before. It didn't say lightly synthetic fields. It just said lighted synthetic fields, as in like there should just be lights. I agree wholeheartedly, Mr. Sowers, that we need more fields. I think that the reason why I think the turf thing is, it's important. I think, again, there are two prongs. It's both about the environmental impacts, which of course I think is the most important because it's the health of our citizens, our residents, but also about our economic competitiveness, because we've been told by Cops Island, we've been told by providers who use the water that the presence of PFAS and other chemicals in the sound can be disastrous to industries upon which Norwalk relies to be economically viable. And they're some of our most prized industries. So we just need to be really thoughtful about this. And as Lisa said, we don't want to be part of the problem. We want to be part of the solution. So I think that including an amendment to remove these things, I think would be a prudent thing to do here. And I agree with what Nicole said. I think we need to make sure that that we do what we can to make sure that these fields are properly staffed. I know it's been sort of a fight. There's always budget fights with this, but our parks are among our most important assets in the city, and everyone in this room and everyone on the council, I'm sure, is going to agree with me on that one. So this has been very good work. Don't take this as negative criticism. If anything, this is just a little constructive.
Yeah.
But this is really a very well done piece of work.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Lisa?
Yeah, I was gonna say if I could just jump in before Nick goes to reassure everybody that I would absolutely vote for this if the word turf fields is removed in all of those places for the very reason that the work is fantastic. It's an important work. And Nicole is exactly right. We need to support our Parks and Recs department with more staff. We fought hard 2 years ago to get some more staff for Recs and Parks, and we're going to do it again this year. You can't take care of, you can't have the parks and our recreational fields operate as they need to without staff. And we've been understaffing, in my opinion, this department for too long. So absolutely delighted to support both our amended report and more staffing.
Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. Mr. Coon?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is just simply, in terms of cost difference between synthetic and potentially an enhanced natural grass athletic field is essentially the same cost square footage wise. We actually just recently completed an analysis of that, and they're really about the same costs to implement. There will be potentially still less capacity for any natural grass field, but I think given the projects that have been identified, wouldn't necessarily result in even higher need for even more fields than what is already recommended in there. So it's a very easy swap or clarification in the document to just emphasize the fields that are needed, and the costs would essentially remain the same for what's listed.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And before we vote, I just want to say, I know, Mr. Coon, we mentioned the turf field issue to you right away. I think that was one of the first things that we talked about when you came on board, at least with Robert, that we had this conversation, and we were honest about it. There's a lot going on of folks wanting to have grass fields and eliminating the turf fields. And so I think I'm not sure that we as a city have had a balanced conversation about that yet. But I think we can move forward in that direction. Turf fields, air water supplies doesn't make sense, right? I mean, that's almost a common sense thing. It doesn't make sense. When you know better, we're supposed to do better. And we know that that is a potential hazardous condition. But again, I think Robert, Mr. Coon, if you're available to help in anybody, I think that we need to have that conversation, because if we continue on this path, which we hope we do, of improving our parks, and like others have said time and time before this meeting and in other spaces, we don't have adequate staff. And it doesn't make sense to pour all this money into improvements to have them go by the wayside. And so we're all mindful of that. And so at some point, we need to have that conversation. But I agree that we take the language out, because that, we're trying to move away from that. And I think that gives us the opportunity to do the best thing, given each situation when we look at them individually. So I appreciate, as others have said, all the hard work that has gone into this, and not realizing that you've been around for 2 years. That's a long time. That's a very long time to be with us. We're friends now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So thank you to Robert and to Ken and the staff, and just as council people, because I think we really take this seriously. I know you can see that. And so the next step then is to remove that language, and so I guess then we make a motion to do that, so. I guess to make a
Madam
motion,
Chair,
I'm sorry,
I'm about to make the motion if you.
okay,
allow me.
go ahead, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I move that we amend the language of the current master plan to omit any reference to turf fields.
Got it. I'm sorry.
Second.
I think
Go
a
ahead.
quick modification. The implementation of turf fields, because there are some things in the report where it says to either relocate, I think, or remove turf fields. So I think anything about further building of turf fields. If I'm not, Nick, you're gonna have to tell me if I'm wrong about that, but I don't think all mentions of turf involve putting in turf fields.
Yes, there is a couple different scenarios of removal, replacement of synthetic turf that already exists, relocation of existing turf field as well. And then there is a combination, I believe, 5 fields total that would be that are included in the report currently that would be proposed as new. So it could be a combination of just simply advancing that each individual project to be determined as that project comes into further discussion. So
Yeah, Robert, I think you know what we're looking for at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
So-
So I think between you and Mr. Coon, you can finesse
Yeah,
that so that we
I think-
make
yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I think any references to what I call synthetic turf, but
Yeah.
we call it turf. Any references, any underlying meaning or whatever, we'll work on taking that out.
So do I have
So,
to rescind my
right,
motion?
Right. Say it again, Nicole, please.
Okay, so I rescind my previous motion. And I wish to make a new motion to eliminate the use of turf fields for
Oh.
any new, I'm
No,
saying it wrong
No.
again?
I don't know if we're
Okay.
eliminating, we're eliminating the word, the term, right? Turf fields,
The term.
the term, turf fields from the
For the
document,
terminology.
right?
I'm sorry, we're gonna get this together, but somebody in the public was screaming, no, no.
Yeah,
Really should be on mute. They really should be on mute. But we'll try this again. I move to eliminate the terminology of turf fields in the master plan that has any in reference to any new turfs or any new fields that will be in the city. I think that was right. If it's wrong, somebody else make the motion.
How does that sound, Josh or Lisa? I mean, we're just eliminating the term turf, right? Or synthetic fields, right, from the document.
The goal
So we're
is
just-
to say that we need fields and that we're not going to determine whether it's going to be artificial or grass.
Artificial, right, so we're
Yes.
removing the word turf for
so
synthetic.
if it says put in synthetic turf fields, we're looking for that to be removed. If it
Fields,
says
right.
replace turf field or remove turf field, keep, that should be included in the report because that's in accordance with the policy preference here.
Well, I don't know if we want to replace turf fields. Like if a turf field is, we don't want to replace it with turf, right? We want to
No,
just,
we don't want to replace it with turf.
we want to make everything neutral as far as new fields go.
Right.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, replace athletic field. Yeah, and no mention of synthetic turf or call out specifically of
field.
any kind of
That's
specific
it.
material at this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, someone want to say that again? Makes sense. Nicole,
Not me. I did it 3 times and I did it wrong.
Josh, go ahead, Josh.
I'll try it. I'd like to amend the motion to remove any positive mention of the inclusion of additional turf fields. And to, in other circumstances, if appropriate, alter the language to neutralize the kind of field that needs to be implemented.
That's good. That's good.
Does that work for everybody?
Mhm.
All in favor?
You get our drift.
Yeah, you get our drift. All right, all in favor? We're just gonna say aye, right? Great. All right, thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Kuhn.
Thank you all.
It is not over. We will see you. Hopefully we
Yes.
get this done real quick. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. That was good conversation. Number 2, approve the use of Calf Pasture Beach and immediate surrounding grounds by Norwalk Hospital Foundation for their Whittingham Cancer Center Walk and Run event to be held on Saturday, September 30th from 7:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Set up at 6 a.m. with tear down at 4 p.m. Approximately 1,250 people. If someone move the item. Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Who do we have here to speak to that?
Susie.
Susan Kenny.
Hi, it's Susie.
Hi, Ms. Cunningham.
How are you?
How are you? Good, how are
I'm
you?
good. I'm okay. I'm okay.
So you want to speak to this a little bit for us?
So, yes, certainly. So we've been very fortunate the last 19 years to consistently hold a fundraising event at Calf Pasture for the Whittingham Cancer Center. This will be our 20th. Nothing is really changing from our format. It's a morning event. We're going to set up early, same tenting, same plan, floor plan, and it usually concludes before noon, and we will pack up everything. We'll be handing out bottled water, fresh fruit, and kind bars, not selling anything. So it's pretty much the same format. I don't think at this point, because we did have to, as you all know, change the normal time frame that we would hold the walk usually in May, but because of the reworking of the parking lot there, we were asked to pick a later date. So I don't think we're going to have the number of participants like we've had before. Signups have been slower. And we do realize we're competing against some other events, other run walks in the area. So I'm thinking it's going to be more in the neighborhood of like 700 people.
Okay.
But still important.
Absolutely. Mr. Stowers, do you have any comments about this event?
It's an annual event. It's been one of our better events, and like Susan said, they expect the numbers to be down. So that we fully support this cause, and it's part of what we do in terms of recreation and parks. We want people to be healthy, and we desire to have our programs and events be one that promotes health. So we're greatly in favor of this. They're working through the special events process, and so we're good with this.
Great. All right. Anyone, any members have any comments? No? All in favor? All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
You're all
guys.
set, Ms. Kuhn. All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
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 5.3, approve the use of Calf Pasture Beach and serve. Wait a minute. Is this the same thing? No, something
No,
different. I'm
there's
sorry.
Alzheimer's.
It's so good. Approve the use of Calf Pasture Beach and immediate surrounding grounds by the Alzheimer's Association Connecticut chapter for their Walk to End Alzheimer's event to be held on Sunday, October 8th, 2023 from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. set up at 5:30 and tear down at 1 p.m. approximately 2,400 people. Could someone move the item, please? Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. I saw your hand. Thank you. And who's, okay, Ms. Buddha?
Yes, hi, I'm Cheryl Podop from the Alzheimer's Association. I'm the walk manager. It is very similar to what was just said for the previous walk. It's the same footprint. It's the same as it's been. This will be our 30th year that we're doing it. We expect about 2,400 people. We will also be giving out water bottles, fresh fruit, and like in-kind bars, sport bars, and it's same as it's been every year. We know that parking was an issue, so we have asked for people to be carpooling and the students that come in to be brought in through buses, so it'll be easier.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stowers, did you have anything to say?
No, I'm fully in support of this event. The only thing is, I know they have events in other cities like this,
Yes,
and other cities allow dogs in parks as long as they're leashed. Other cities allow that, some of the other cities, so I think last year, a lot of people thought they could do that in Norwalk as well, so just a reminder that, we don't have a leash law and dogs in our parks. We have a dog park, but there was quite a few dogs last year that, kind of raised the eyebrow. So just a warning, just a reminder.
yes, no, we appreciate that. We were upset when that happened as well. I think it's an after effect of COVID, to be perfectly honest. Everyone
Right,
thinks that
right.
they're their children and they can bring them, but we will make sure that we do additional announcements and advertising, no pets allowed. Because we know that that is a concern.
Mhm.
Any questions for Ms. Podab? Comments? Great. All in favor? Thank you. All right, Ms. Podab, you are approved and all set. Thank you so much. And I just have to say, while you're on, Norwalk is special that we've had organizations that have been around this long doing these events. The first one's 20 years and this one is 30 years. And it's almost making me think we really need to highlight this in maybe a better way, because people come here and they consistently do that and it's
Mhm.
long term. And so we appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. And it means a lot to us as well. So thank you. I hope to see you all there. In person.
Right. Yes. Have a
Have a
good
nice
evening.
I've gone the last 2 years. It's a great event. So look
Thank
forward to
you.
going again.
Yay, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
5.4, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order in an amount not to exceed $66,993.44 for the purchase of 48 in-ground garbage receptacles from CyberTech Waste Reduction Ltd, project number 4276 from account number noted. Someone move the item. Ayers, okay, Ms. Ayers, thank you. Okay, and who's here to speak to that?
Well, I'll speak to it. I think Ken's on the line too.
Oh, okay.
He can't stay away from us. But he's on vacation, but these things are very important to him, and so very important to us and very important to the city of Norwalk. And he's always been that person to make sure things happen. But this is something that came to me right away when I got here. We don't really have the staff to be able to give day-to-day attention to garbage and litter. Our staff is not that, the capacity of our staff is not that large. And so right away, I thought, if we can't bring on more staff, which I still intend to pursue that, but in lieu of that, these in-ground cans save us the time and makes our work more efficient. They're in-ground cans, so they're as much as 6 to 8 feet into the ground. Receptacle sets on front of them, and they pull the we've ordered a truck as well. It will down the line you'll see that pulls these bags, these large bags out, and we would only have to visit the sites maybe every a couple of weeks, maybe even 3 weeks in some areas. And that would save, that would allow us to use staff for other things. We've done this very successfully in Seattle. They've done them all over the nation, actually, very successfully. And this was one of the feature issues when Bob Duff called me, I don't know, last year. He called me and he says, hey, I think I can get you $4.5 million or $5 million. What would you do with it? And I started telling him what we would do, and the list kind of got long. So he came back and he said, well, you take some of the things out because they're over 5 million, right? So I started taking things out, and I actually took these out. And he says, no, I want that one back in because that's going to add to the beautification of our parks. And it's gonna help you in terms of your staffing. So we put this back in. And so we did recently did an RFP and we selected Cybertech to purchase these in-ground cans. And you'll see below as we go through the other items that we also selected a company to install the cans. So I don't know, Ken, you want to say anything? Are you still there? I think he might have went off.
Oh, so Robert, how would installation work?
Installation is, it's just like, you know, it's, we would have, the company would actually dig the holes for the cans. They would insulate the area around the cans, and then they would put the cans down. And then there's a beautiful receptacle that goes over it. So you won't notice, it would look just like any other garbage, any other can, receptacle can. You won't notice that the litter and the garbage is actually falling all the way down to the bottom. You won't notice it. It'll look just like any receptacle. So that's that the installers would install it. But we ourselves will be pulling the bags out of the ground. You know, and that's why we also have money for trucks. And then a pooler comes with the cans. So we pull the cans out with kind of a big beaver. So this is like I said, it's been done all over the country, and it's going to really save us some staff time that we can use staff in other areas.
Do we have any other questions for Robert on this? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Nikki, are you opposed?
I was in favor. My thing is stuck.
Okay.
Favor.
All right. Item 5, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into a contract with Aqualis for the installation of 48 in-ground garbage receptacles for amount not to exceed $71,181 from account number noted. So Robert, on this agenda, do you see what I'm looking at? Do you see
Yeah.
4,
This is-
5, and 6?
Yeah, five and
Well, 4, 5, and 4A. I think this is,
yeah.
which one is?
Yeah, this actually should be fine. And it's the installation company, and then 5A allows a portion of the budget as a buffer or, you know, a contingency in case we run into anything or any other costs. It's just a contingency there.
Okay,
And one of the things we're gonna do, some places we're not gonna be able to put this in because of the groundwater, and so we are very considerate of the places we can put this. So we won't. So like Calf Pasture Beach, for instance, or that park, there's some places we would have to install them on higher ground. So we're very cognizant of that, and so we're with the installers to make sure that happens.
okay. So I just have a question before I move on, because if I look at the next one, so under it, it says 4A. You see it? It should be 5A. Okay, so I should, okay, I want to read that as well. Authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to issue change order to Aqualis for the installation of 48 in-ground receptacles in amount not to exceed $14,236.22 from account number noted. So that goes with 5. That should have been 5. So do we have any questions for Robert on this item? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, thank you, Nicole. Number 3, 4, 5, 6.
Mhm.
Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order for the sole source purchase and installation of a new playground for Cranberry Park in an amount not to exceed $192,291.50 of the Omnia Partners Agreement from account number noted. And 6A, authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to issue a change order in an amount not to exceed $18,815 for the sole source purchase and installation of a new playground for Cranberry Park from account number noted. Would someone please move the item? Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Okay, Robert?
Yeah, this is the new playground that we're putting the Cranberry, it was part of our capital. The sole sources, of course, these are kind of state contracts that they've already done the bidding, they've already done the upfront work, and so it makes it a little easier for us to go out and solicit. So this is for the new playground at Cranberry Park. We've been in kind of a series of replacing playgrounds, and this is, of course, is in that. This was in our capital, whereas a lot of the other ones were in our ARPA funds and our Department of our deep funds that we got from Bob Duff helped us to get them the Department of Energy. But this particular one came out of my capital.
Great. Any comments or questions? I think Cranberry School is just going to look beautiful once this is installed from the outside and in. And so this is the final piece to that, which is going to be wonderful for the families and students. So all in favor? Unanimous. Item 7, authorize a purchasing agent to issue a purchase order for the sole source purchase of a Freightliner M2 106 Plus from Freightliner of Hartford of the state of Connecticut, DAS contract number 14PSX0239 in an amount not to exceed $192,206.20 from account number noted. And 7A, authorize a purchasing agent to issue a change order for the sole source purchase of a Freightliner M2 106 Plus from Freightliner of Hartford of the state of Connecticut, DAS contract number noted in an amount not to exceed $19,220 from account number noted. Someone please move the item. Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. Okay.
Yeah, this is the actual truck that we have ordered to actually handle these in-ground cans and to pull the in-ground cans. And of course, this comes from the Department of Energy funds that we got as a part of the grant that Bob Duff so graciously helped us with.
How big is this truck? That's a pretty big truck.
It's a pretty big truck. It's a pretty big truck, but I was surprised you still don't need a DCL license. I was surprised by that, but it's a big truck.
Oh, you said they don't need a special license to drive it?
No, they don't need special license.
All right. Any questions for Robert on this? Flowers? All in favor? All right, unanimous.
Yeah, along with this, we are also, and I was looking on my list because we got to send a list in of where we are on all these projects.
Mhm.
But and I think I've talked about this before. We are going to be engaging in a design and eventual purchase of receptacles all over the city. These won't be in ground; they'll be the regular receptacles. That we want to make them consistent. We want to make them fun looking. We want to make them so that we have all the elements of recycle as well. But we want to do that in every park along with a signage study as well, signage design, so that we can have consistent signs in all our parks with actually, and probably bringing to the council at some point, some closing times. Right now, the police cannot enforce, vagrants or people that are hanging out in parks when it just says dusk. They need a real specific reason to move people on. And so these are some of the things that we want to do to beautify and keep our parks looking uniform. So that will be happening too from these deep funds.
All right. Did we vote on this? All in favor? Okay, great. All right, that concludes the agenda, and I don't know if we had anything for discussion. You didn't have anything for discussion, but I think you brought up something though about some consistency across our parks with our signage and all of that. I know there's some signs that are faded, and I don't know how we do that. Do we take an inventory of those things?
Well, we want to completely revamp our signage. The old wooded signs with painted letters. We want to revamp them and revamp the whole signage. And we'll bring probably 2 or 3 designs to the council before we decide on what to do.
Great. All right.
I don't know if Sabrina is still here. I don't know.
She is not. What did she had an item on the? Was it on here?
Well, she didn't really. It was more a discussion. Just kind of information. We wanted to, I know Jessica was on last meeting talking about the Sono Farmers Markets. And we just wanted to make you guys aware that, they will run, looks like they've got them scheduled through November, yeah. And with that, they have a couple of they have a game night and lawn games. They don't expect very many people there, 30 people at the lawn games, maybe 50 at the game night. So they just want you to be aware of this. The Department of Economic Development and Tourism is the one putting these on. But there will be some events that they will be doing in October. Night fair on Washington Street, Halloween brunch, holiday extravaganza, and the Wall Street Wonderland. But those will all be brought to the committee because they are serious events with 1,000 or more people expected. So we will be bringing those in September. Those events, they will be bringing those and speaking to those in September. So we just wanted you to be informed. That's all.
And just to add, because we're talking about all the things that are going on, I have to say we've had a significant increase of organizations, a lot of grassroots organizations, small businesses that have been putting on or interested in putting on events in the city. So utilizing our field. So, and it's growing. It is definitely growing, which always goes back to the need of staff. How do we manage that, and how do we manage all of that in our fields, in our spaces? Ms. Ayers?
Thank you. I have a question, Mr. Stowers. A lot of times when different events are put on the agenda and they come to the committee, they present to the committee, we see in our packet like the date, we see capacity, we see a description. I have heard the chair say numerous times, Ken or Mr. Stowers, is there an issue with this event? I've never heard you guys say there was an issue. It's normally no. My question is, do we correspond or do we have some way in the office to track if different events are compliant with other departmental departments of the city?
Well, usually if we've had trouble with some event, we know that because we either keep their deposit or, you know, Rebecca keeps a real detailed record of the people who rent our facilities, rent our fields, and we do track what they do, and we try and clean that up before we come to the committee. But also, every other department in the police, including, have to sign off on these events. So sometimes we'll get a call from the police department that says, you know, that, you know, we had trouble with these people in the past, and, you know, just like I was talking about the dog thing. I mean, that last event last year, you had dogs all over the place. And so that's why I brought that up to her, because it turned out to be quite a mess. But we understood that when we actually looked into the matter, they do these events in almost every city, and most cities do have a leash law. Okay, so when people were bringing them in, they were there are people who walked in other events and they thought it was okay to bring their dog, but it's not. So we brought it up. But yeah, we try and keep a record of our events and the issues we have with them. We're starting to in fact because of you last year or maybe a year and a half ago, we're starting to have staff at those events now, so that we keep track of things, and they call us early. They even call us when they're wrong. You know, like I went down to an event last Saturday, and they said the person didn't have a permit, but he did, and he had permits from the health department and everything else. But it was good because it shows that our staff is watching and people are watching. So.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
Go ahead,
Thank
Nicole.
you for that, Mr. Stowers. I do not stop singing your praises, because I do think that you do a very efficient job in spearheading that department. I appreciate hearing that you do your due diligence before it comes to us. And I don't want to speak for my other colleagues, but it does give me some comfort knowing that that is being done, so that the packet that we are seeing, not that I want any more to read, because trust me, we have enough to read, but that you have done the due diligence in making sure that every, you know, T is crossed and every I is dotted. So I thank you so very much for that.
Thank you. You know,
And so, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to bring something totally off subject, but it's a concern of mine, and I've tried to talk to Henry about it, and I talked to Tom about it a little bit. Tom Livingston, but in the budget process, we have a lot of new programs, a lot of new projects that, you know, that we entertain and we pass. But we don't pass maintenance costs with those projects or programs. And my experience in budgeting, because I've been a budget director before as well, is when you bring a new project, that you have new facility costs along with that project as part of the budget package. So when people are bringing their budget items and expenses, it should included in that number should be some new facility costs, which means new equipment, new staffing, whatever, should be baked into that. And the reason why I brought it up is because the Norwalk River Valley Trail has been planned, constructed without any real discussion about maintenance, as far as I know. Now they talk about volunteers, but as I found out, the volunteers are not in Norwalk; they're in the rest of the cities. So we this weekend DPW had to go out and redo the whole extension. That way, well, maintain the whole extension. So mow the whole thing, weed it, to a cost of about $35,000. And so I'm just saying that in the future, maybe we should think more about maintenance, dollars being included. So when someone comes, even if it's me, if I come to you at a new project or a new deal, how are we gonna maintain it? Where your new facility costs included? Because if we don't maintain things, they just fall apart eventually. And so I just brought it up because, I talked to Tom about it. I talked to Henry about it, and as much as last year. So it's just something I'm used to doing as a budget person, or putting in my budget when I'm operating a division or a department. So just let me know. Just give me some information. But we did, it looks good. It looks good though. It looks good. If you go down there, it's gonna look good. It's all, we did a good job. And Chris Torrey, his group, and me and Vanessa, we kind of planned the whole thing out. And so it looks really, really good. And it needs to stay looking that good. So we're gonna get together and determine how we're gonna keep up that trail. And probably try and recruit and bring on some volunteers and structure that whole thing. So just letting you know, just giving you some information.
Thank you. That was a lot, but that's good. That's good stuff. Okay. And I wanted to just say, Nicole, in the past, we asked that question because it does come up. It doesn't come up often, thank goodness, but there have been instances where people have damaged property or just didn't comply with what they said they were going to do. And so we do, Ken or Robert do express that, but also say that they've talked with the organization. And there's an extensive process. I think you've seen that application that they have to go through, right, Robert, and get all these signatures. There's about 10 or so, at least maybe about that many signatures or so that they need to get, depending on what they're doing with each department and how big their event is. And a lot of times if there have been inappropriate incidences, it's usually shared among the group. It is shared among the group. So we try to do the best we can to manage that process. All right, so no other comments. Thank you, Josh. We're gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Yes. Have a good night, everyone.
All in favor, vote by. Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.